Did you ever imagine your first paycheck would feel like freedom, only to stare at the number and wonder where half of it went? After years of school, interviews, and waiting for that first real job, your bank account finally grows. But instead of excitement, there is confusion. The amount feels smaller than the salary you were promised. It almost feels like someone quietly took a piece of your future before you even had the chance to spend it. But the real answer is far stranger. The feeling has very little to do with math. It has everything to do with how your brain predicts rewards, how modern payroll systems work, and how human psychology evolved thousands of years before paychecks ever existed. Your brain is an incredible prediction machine. Long before money existed, your ancestors survived by constantly guessing whether a hunt would succeed, whether fruit would still be hanging from a tree, or whether a dangerous animal was hiding behind the next hill. Every expectation shaped how rewarding the final outcome felt. Modern neuroscience calls this prediction error. Instead of responding only to rewards, your brain compares reality with what it expected. When reality exceeds expectations, you feel excitement. When reality falls short, disappointment appears, even if the outcome is objectively good. This idea became famous through the work of researcher Wolfram Schultz, whose studies on dopamine showed that the brain reacts strongly when rewards are better or worse than expected. Dopamine is not simply the chemical of pleasure. It is deeply involved in learning from surprises. That means your first paycheck is judged against the salary you imagined for weeks or even months. If you accepted a job paying $50,000 a year, your brain instantly begins picturing that number. You imagine dinners out, new clothes, weekend trip, maybe even finally replacing an old phone. But annual salaries are promises spread across an entire year. Paychecks are snapshots. Taxes, insurance, retirement contributions, and other deductions arrive before the money ever reaches your account. Your expectations were built around the biggest number. Reality arrives as the smaller one. Why does your brain focus on the bigger number so easily? Because humans naturally anchor on the first number they see. Psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky demonstrated that people rely heavily on the first piece of information they receive when making judgment. This mental shortcut is called anchoring. When you hear a yearly salary during a job offer, that number becomes your mental reference point. Everything afterward is compared against it. Your actual paycheck is judged against the anchor, not against what you truly earned after deductions. That makes the difference feel much larger than it really is. Then another invisible force begins working. Humans rarely notice what never enters their hand. When taxes are withheld automatically, your brain experiences them differently than if you physically handed over cash every month. Behavioral economists call this mental accounting. Economist Richard Thaler showed that your brain organizes money into separate mental categories instead of treating every dollar equally. Money deposited into your account feels like yours. Money removed before you ever see it barely enters that mental account. Ironically, this automatic system often prevents painful financial mistakes, yet it also creates the strange sensation that money disappeared somewhere along the way. Have you noticed that people often remember the salary from a job advertisement, but struggle to remember their exact take-home pay? That is another shortcut your brain prefers. Large, simple numbers are easier to remember than complicated calculations involving deduction. Payroll departments calculate dozens of variables. Your brain remembers one headline. The mismatch creates disappointment. There is another psychological effect hiding inside your first paycheck. It is called loss aversion. According to Kahneman and Tversky's prospect theory, losses usually feel much stronger than equivalent gains feel rewarding. Imagine receiving $2,000 after expecting $2,500. Even though you gained $2,000 you did not have before, your brain focuses on the missing $500. The perceived loss becomes emotionally louder than the actual gain. Nothing was stolen. Nothing unexpected happened. Yet your brain treats the difference almost like a real loss. This reaction once helped your ancestors survive. Missing food after a successful hunt could threaten survival. Noticing shortages quickly had enormous evolutionary value. Today, the same ancient system reacts to tax deductions on a digital pay stub. Your brain cannot always distinguish between survival losses and accounting adjustments. It simply notices that reality is smaller than expectation. The story does not end there. Your first paycheck also marks a major identity shift. For years, money may have arrived through gifts, allowances, scholarships, or part-time work. Now every dollar represents your time. Every hour worked becomes attached to a number. Behavioral researchers have found that people value money differently depending on how they earned it. When money reflects personal effort, emotional attachment becomes much stronger. That makes every deduction feel more personal. Even retirement contributions can feel painful despite helping your future. Your brain sees today's reduction before it imagines tomorrow's reward. This is where another famous experiment enters the story. Walter Mischel's marshmallow experiment explored delayed gratification by asking children to wait for a larger reward instead of taking a smaller reward immediately. Although later research expanded and refined its conclusions, one lesson remains powerful. Humans naturally struggle to value distant rewards as much as immediate ones. Retirement savings, pension contributions, and long-term investments ask your brain to celebrate something decades away. Your brain evolved to prioritize today. That ancient preference makes future benefits emotionally weaker than present deduction. But something remarkable happens after several paychecks. Your expectations slowly change. The first paycheck becomes becomes the new normal. Prediction error shrinks. Anchoring adjusts. Your brain stops comparing every paycheck with the annual salary and begins comparing it with previous deposits instead. What once felt disappointing starts feeling ordinary. Then another surprising shift appears. Raises often create only temporary happiness. Researchers studying hedonic adaptation found that people quickly become accustomed to improvements in income and lifestyle. A larger paycheck feels exciting for a while. Soon it becomes the new baseline. Your expectations rise once again. That explains why many people earning twice as much as they did 5 years earlier still feel financially stressed. Their brains adapted faster than their satisfaction. The paycheck changed. Their expectations changed with it. Understanding these psychological patterns can completely transform how you view your income. Instead of focusing only on gross salary, begin paying attention to take-home pay before accepting a job. Instead of seeing taxes only as money disappearing, understand what they fund and why payroll systems collect them automatically. Instead of feeling discouraged by retirement contributions, remember that your future self benefits from decisions your present brain struggles to appreciate. Most importantly, recognize that disappointment does not always mean something went wrong. Sometimes it simply means your expectations arrived but before reality. Your first paycheck feels smaller because your brain compares promises with deposits, predictions with outcomes, and imagined wealth with real-world numbers. The paycheck is not merely a financial document. It is your first lesson in behavioral economics. Every deduction teaches how expectations shape emotion. Every deposit teaches how your brain measures success. And every future paycheck becomes a reminder that the numbers in your account matter far less than the story your brain tells about them. That story began long before salaries, banks, or direct deposits existed. It began when your ancestors learned to predict tomorrow in order to survive today. The same ancient prediction system still follows every notification from your banking app, quietly deciding whether your paycheck feels exciting or disappointing before you ever spend a single dollar.